Hey everybody, and welcome to the live show here this Sunday. It's good that you're with me here. There's going to be a lot of news coming out in the auto industry here in the next couple of days. The LA Auto Show is this week in Los Angeles, and because Detroit has moved, they're not having a Detroit Auto Show in January. They're moving it until June, I believe. It's May or June. I think it's June. This is going to be one of the biggest shows heading into the sort of auto show season. So keep an eye peeled. Actually, tonight they're going to be revealing the Mach-E. That is the Ford full electric SUV styled to look a lot like a Mustang. And my colleague Brian Chow is down in LA. He's seen the car and he says it looks very, very good. It's embargoed, of course. You can't show any pictures or what have you, but it is going to be shown later tonight, in fact. And lots of information coming over the next few days. So if you're a car buff, LA Auto Show is underway. I'm not there, and there's a reason why. I was supposed to go to China to do some work in China for an outlet that I do stuff for, but it didn't pan out. I had to keep this time free, so I didn't go to the LA show. All right, so James asked, are you going to be test driving the Mustang Mach-E? Probably. Yeah, when it's shown and they have ride and drive events, I'm sure I'm going to be invited to that. It's going to be a huge deal for Ford. Nicholas says, hey Zach, I watched a review on the Mazda CX-5, but just wondering how you think that compares to the CR-V and the RAV4. Well, I think that the CX-5, especially if you get the higher trim versions with the turbocharged engine, really is now becoming a premium vehicle alternative. So the RAV4 and the CR-V are fine products, but they just can't compete when it comes to interior refinement. And if I say this all the time, if you put somebody in a higher spec CX-5 and you covered the Mazda logo on the steering wheel, they wouldn't be able to tell. They actually, not they wouldn't be able to tell. They would think that they're in a much more expensive brand than Mazda. So if you can afford to get those higher trim levels with the turbo engine, I think it's a great choice. RAV4 is going to be the one you keep and buy and hold for a long period of time. And the CR-V is kind of like the Swiss Army knife. It does everything well. Now, if you watch this, you've probably seen lots of questions about, engine situations with the CR-V, with fuel getting into the oil. Speaking to the people at Honda, they say that they have a fix for that now. We'll have to wait and see. Excuse me. So there you go. If you can afford the higher end, CX-5 is a great choice. Jeff says, hey Zach, been watching for a long time and often love your viewpoint. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. Hey Zach, thanks for the videos. You're welcome. The one that went up today was Supra. I really like this car. It was a load of fun. Still to come, we're going to have the NSX videos coming out and the Jeep Gladiator. This coming week, I have the Toyota Mirai fuel cell vehicle. Excuse me. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Andrea drive it, somebody who's never ever driven a fuel cell car, so that should be interesting. Jeff says, for an Edmonton-based active family of 4 looking for a second car, number 1, a minivan. What would you go with? I get it now. The number 1 vehicle you have is a minivan. Would you go with the 19 All-Track Exec Line fully loaded or the 20 Outback Outdoor Package? The VW is a little cheaper. Well, you're kind of looking at the only 2 kind of station wagons in that space. It really comes down to how much space you need. So your family of 4, the Subaru certainly is a bigger vehicle. So you have more space in the back. You have more space in the cargo area. But here's the thing. After 2019 model year, the Volkswagen station wagons will be gone and you won't be able to get another one. So sentimentally, and I do like the product a lot, you could consider getting the Volkswagen. You can consider leasing it. And then in 2 or 3 years, if you want to flip into the Subaru, you could do that. It's sort of one of those situations where you have to drive them. Now, one has a continuously variable transmission, that's the Subaru, and the Volkswagen has a regular 8-speed automatic. If you get the all-track, you get the dual clutch, I believe. So if it was just based on driving dynamics, I would say the Volkswagen. The Subaru is smoother and quieter and more refined. So test them both out. There is no wrong answer here. Hi Zach, I'm in the market for a non-luxury alternative of an A5. I've shortlisted, I was going to say Volkswagen Arteon, the Kia Stinger. They are priced very similarly. What is your take on these two cars? I like both of them, actually. The Arteon reminds me more of my old car. I had an Audi A7. My previous vehicle, or previous family vehicle, was an A7. I absolutely love that car. And the Arteon reminds me so much of it. The size, the cargo area. The Stinger is a little bit overstyled for me. The problem I have with Arteon is the price is the same. One has got a turbocharged four-cylinder engine. The other one's got a twin turbo V6. So if it's just based on power, Stinger would be the way to go. If it's based on packaging, I kind of like the Volkswagen a little bit better, only because I have that sort of soft spot for that Volkswagen group design that they have, and it reminds me a lot of the Audi. Same thing again. There is no wrong answer here. I do think that the Arteon is a little bit overpriced, but it's your money, and if you think there's value there, go for it. By the way, you get 1 year extra warranty with the Volkswagen. Hey Zach, my BMW 06, 09, 330 is getting close to 300,000 kilometers. Good for you. Time for a new car with similar experience of steering, handling, four-door, preferably 6-speed, budget up to 60K. Any recommendations? I would suggest that you look at the G70 from Genesis. I think for a fully loaded Genesis, you could certainly get that. Now, you're not going to get the same engine that's in the Stinger, the twin turbo 3.3 liter 6-cylinder. You're going to get their turbo 4-cylinder, which is pretty good though. It's 255 horsepower, and that would probably be the one I would suggest. Now, the back seat in the Stinger isn't, not the Stinger, the G70 isn't particularly big. I don't know if you need it for a family, but that's what I would try for it. The thing is, BMW doesn't offer a manual transmission anymore, so if you're looking at that kind of price, you could get one fully loaded, all in, for much less than $60,000. The only other one I can think of is I think they still have the A4 with a manual, but it's only front-wheel drive, so that's another one to consider. Mo asking the same questions. Thoughts on the new Mustang or Ford Mach-E SUV? Well, I think it's interesting to watch. There's a real worry in the car industry that electrified means Tesla and nothing else. There's going to be lots of electrified cars coming into the market, but if they're not purchased at a rate that is a return on investment for these car companies and people just buy a Tesla, where are we? And, so Ford might come out with a great styled SUV that has, pretty good capacity and range and charging time and all that kind of stuff, but people might just glaze over it and go right and buy a Tesla. We've seen that with the Jaguar I-Pace. They're not selling them. The e-tron isn't selling, I don't believe, as well as they had hoped. We'll have to wait till Tiguan hits the ground here in North America, but it's going to be interesting to watch. They're doing their big reveal tonight, I believe, for the Ford Mach-E. Hey Zach, any ideas when the XC30 will be available in Canada? That's the new compact crossover from Mazda. Before Christmas is what I hear. Hi Zach, do you think sedans with liftbacks are the way of the future, like the Arteon, Regal Sportback, and the Stinger? I owned one, as I mentioned. I owned an Audi A7, and I loved it. It was the perfect balance of utility and having a sleek sedan. So yeah, I kind of think so. I'm not sure if they're all going to go that way. Sedan sales are down across the board, but if someone's looking for a sedan, there's nothing wrong with that. I particularly liked the A7 and the Arteon size because it's quite a big car. But hey, if you give me a Passat, that would be fine too. When is BMW M5 and what is BMW M4 Derived 2020 coming to the market? I don't know the timing on that. I apologize. Any news on the hybrid Nissan Murano? No news on that. That's just the thing is, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff coming this week. So you're maybe speculating on things. There is no, I don't have all the answers today. The Los Angeles Auto Show is this week. So if you're really interested in the newest and the latest and what's coming, next couple of days for press days will be interesting to watch. Ben Mizrahi, what do you think about third-party mechanical insurance when a car has passed its 5-year powertrain warranty? What are the viable options out there? It's interesting you bring this up because I'm doing some work with another outlet, and they have a insurance provider, like a warranty, extended warranty insurance provider, and I'm going to be letting you know about it in the next little while. It's owned by a company and a family that owns plenty of car dealerships across the country. And I've never really delved into that part of the market because I don't know who the good players are and not the good players. I've been told from somebody that I'm working with who knows this stuff intimately, says this company is particularly good. So I'll hopefully have more information on that as we go forward. But yeah, there are third-party warranties available. What you should do is get in touch with the business manager of your dealer. Say my car is coming up to it's the end of its CPO. Can I get an extended warranty? The only issue I have with going that route is that that person is now a sales agent, right? They're going to try and sell you a policy, and they make a commission on that. The bigger the policy, the more money they make. There was a lot of negotiation in there when you're going to buy these third-party extended warranties. So when they say, oh, hey, Zach, it's going to cost you $3,000 to get maybe an extra 2 years coverage on your Cayenne, well, you can negotiate that price. That's the price they come with. It's like going and buying a mattress at a big box store. What they ask for and what you pay for it are two different things. Don't have any specifics for you right now. Will you ever do one-ton pickup truck reviews? I have done the heavy duty, the 2500. Are you talking about like 3500 and bigger than that? Not really my wheelhouse, but if you're looking for the Ram 2500 and the Ram 2500 ProMaster, I did a review on that a few months ago, so check the channel. That's not the big part of my market, is doing pickup trucks. But I do have the Gladiator this week. Hey Zach, 2018 Honda Accord Sport or Toyota Camry SEL? Wasn't this asked last week? Bill, I apologize if it wasn't you. 2008 Honda Accord Sport. So is that the 2-liter or the Camry SEL? Yeah, both are fine. If it's the 2-liter, in the Accord, that has the 10-speed automatic transmission, and the Camry has the 8-speed automatic transmission. If it's just the regular 1.5 in the Accord, then that's the CVT. I prefer to not have a CVT. I really did like driving the Accord with the 2-liter, but it was the manual. That's the one I drove, which was really kind of cool. I've got no problem with either one of them. A lot of people don't like the Accord styling. I think it looks pretty neat looking. It does kind of have that sort of slight fastback look, even though it isn't a hatch. So yeah, if it's that engine with that transmission, I have no problem. The Camry's fine too. These are the two best sellers. So you have Camry, Accord, and then everybody else. And everybody else is like way, way, way down in terms of sales. And so, yeah, sometimes you find better deals if you're not shopping Camry and Accord, but that's the reason why they sell so well, because they're both good cars. Mark says, hey, Zach, who will be able to afford these new electric cars? Well, most electric cars that are coming in to be mainstream are trying to hit that $30,000 to $40,000 range. And I hear you, that's not an inexpensive car, but it's not an overly expensive car either. What we need is that $30,000 to $40,000 range small SUV, like a RAV4 size, or a CRV, or a CX-5, or a Chevy Equinox. If the manufacturers could come out with a compact SUV that's under $40,000 that's electric, that would be a home run. But I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. By the way, LA Auto Show, Toyota is announcing a plug-in hybrid version of RAV4. And if that happens, I think it's going to be a huge seller. All right, jumped around here. Okay, I apologize, it jumped around here. Hey Zach, how come we cannot get brand new Iveco in Canada? Would you consider making videos importing cars from Germany? I don't know what that is, I apologize. What do you think about the CX-30? The CX-30 is the utility they should have brought in my opinion, that size, and then they brought in the CX-3, which it's barely a compact hatchback. It's the Mazda 2 jacked up with cladding on it. Do you know who buys the CX-3? It doesn't young hipsters with their plaid shirts and their beards out hunting for tacos. No, it's retired baby boomers that are empty nesters that don't need a back seat and a lot of cargo space, want the all-wheel drive and to sit a little bit higher. That's who buys the CX-3. The CX-30 is now the right size. I saw it at the, I think it was the Geneva Motor Show. It was unveiled at the beginning of the year. Yeah, it's the right size for people that want a small SUV, and I think it's basically the Mazda 3 made into utility, and that is really good design. Silent Storm says, does 8-speed cause quick clutch worn out? I'm not sure what that means. 8-speed would be an automatic. Yeah, if it's a torque converter style, there is no clutch. Fareed says, hey, from Richmond Hill, keep up the good work. On your recent Supra video, I think you were talking a bit louder. Were you excited or cabin noise was more? Or am I getting older? Yeah, the car was noisier, right? Like, look at it. It's a sports car. And I think they do a little bit of that forced sound into the stereo system as well. And I did have it in the sport button, and it was noticeably louder when you push the sport button. So that was the reason. Oh, wait. I know what you're saying. Partway through the video, I know exactly what you're saying. Partway through the video, this microphone here, the click, 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 you hear that? This one crapped out. So what I had to do was I had to use the GoPro microphone. And that's not the same quality as this. So I apologize. I've had an issue with my the camera that's recording this for some audio recently. So I'm switching to another system, a backup system. So yes, you're not imagining. Partway through the video, this microphone crapped out and I had to use the old backup, the final backup, which is GoPro. So I apologize for that. Yes, it was noisier. It's not you, and you're not getting too old. Looking for a first car, I've decided 2009 Corolla or 2009 Civic. Which one would you go for? I would probably go for the Civic. It's a little bit more fun. Okay, so this is your first car. You're probably a bit of a car enthusiast. You're watching this. I would say there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Corolla, but the Civic is definitely more fun. And in that era, the Civic had independent rear suspension and the Corolla did not. And that makes a big difference, okay? So yeah, when you're looking for a car that's now 10 years old, you want to look for the best maintained vehicle. When you're buying a used car, you're buying the previous owner or owner's maintenance and their dedication to keeping the car maintained. So whichever one you choose, make sure you get it inspected by a mechanic, a third-party mechanic. But I would probably go Civic. Mark says, do you think gas-powered cars are on the way out? No, not at all. The demise of the internal combustion engine has been greatly exaggerated. Here's some stats for you. In the Canadian market, electric car sales are about 1.5%, maybe on a good day with the wind behind you, up to 2%. The recent numbers for the province of British Columbia, where I live, electric car sales have gone up, but this is all ginned by incentives. As soon as governments start to back off on incentives, and we've seen this in jurisdictions around the world, the market for electric cars all but dries up. The thing is, worldwide, we have about 1% of electrified cars. Think about that. In the world, there's probably roughly about 100 million new cars sold every year, and 99% of those are the internal combustion engine. So are we going to replace 99% of all the new cars sold in the next 10 or 20 years? No. We are going to be in an internal combustion engine environment for quite a long time. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be some form of electrification. Hybridization is in my opinion, is the best way to go when it comes to reducing the amount of fuel you use and ultimately tailpipe emissions. So if you haven't watched the review I did of the RAV4, I did a fuel mileage run on that. And then I also reviewed the Corolla Hybrid. Both are excellent choices. And the fuel numbers that these vehicles were returning were absolutely amazing. So yes, they still have internal combustion engines. They're not going away anytime soon, but there might be some form of hybridization included. I think that's what's going to be happening more than anything else. Ba-dum-bum. One more question, Zach. The Arteon has frameless door. Any issues in the winter when it was frozen? The window is supposed to automatically come down a bit before the door is opening. So a lot of cars have had this frameless situation where the window ducks down when you pull it out. I never ever had an issue with it. Now, I live on the West Coast where it doesn't get that cold, maybe as cold as minus 10 degrees Celsius here on Vancouver in the coldest days. But you know what? I wouldn't worry about it too much. I mean, if you scrape the window and you're careful not to, abuse the seal too much, it should work fine. That's something you could easily look up online and see if people have had an issue with that. It wouldn't stop me from buying the car, put it that way. Hey, Zach, now newly electric car competition started and it looks like gasoline will discontinue a couple of years. Do you agree? No, I do not agree. Like I just said, 99% of all the vehicles sold in the world, that's about 100 million vehicles worldwide, are internal combustion engines. They're not going anywhere. When you get, I've mentioned this so many times, you go to places like California, you come out here to certain neighborhoods here in Vancouver and other major metropolitan areas, you get sucked into thinking that there's so many more electric cars on the road, but you get away from those areas and you don't have to go very far, they all but disappear. So a lot of it is optics. The numbers, the hard numbers are no, we are not replacing we're not replacing internal combustion engines with electric cars anytime soon. As I mentioned, it's probably going to be adding forms of electrification as we go forward. And somebody else just mentioned a few comments before, they're too expensive. And that's how people buy vehicles. People buy vehicles sitting around the dining room or kitchen table saying, we've got $400 a month to buy a car. How much car can we get for $400 a month? And right now it's still a small SUV. If I go for the Corolla or manual, if manual, go Civic. Oh, someone else is commenting. Elizabeth Long is here in a sea of dudes. Elizabeth, nice to have you here. Thanks for joining in. Aaron says, thanks for your car reviews about Toyota. I bought the Highlander Limited. Thank you. It's a great product. There's a new Highlander coming. The Ride and Drive event is in Texas, I believe, the second week of December. Unfortunately, I'm already committed to go to Portugal to drive the next generation Mark 8 Golf, so I can't go. So if you're a Highlander fan and you're waiting to see the reviews on the new one, look around the second week of December. There'll be other people covering it. Ben, what do you think about third-party? Oh, some are repeating some of these. Maybe I've gone back too far. Thoughts on first generation Acura TSX? Love your content. I'm not a fan of the TSX transmissions. They went for 8-speed and a 9-speed. The 9-speed was a bit clumsy at first, especially the first generation. And the dual clutch, here's the thing. If you can find a TL, if you're looking first generation TSX, maybe look for last generation Acura TL. Super handling all-wheel drive, the V6 engine, that's built like a tank. Not the prettiest car on the road, but neither is the, I screwed up, I apologize. I'm gonna take it all back. TSX, see this is the problem, they changed the name of the Acuras. They took the RL and then the TSX and they came with the RLX, and that's what I thought you were talking about. Thoughts on the first generation TSX? Love your content. Okay, huge fan of that car, especially if you can get one with the manual transmission, and they're out there. I walk my dog by one all the time. So that, I apologize for making the mistake, is the European Honda Civic, okay? The Honda Civic, the European Honda Accord. I'm getting my car screwed up today. The TSX is the European Honda Accord. fabulous handling car, really strong engine, 201 horsepower, automatic transmission, even better if you can get the manual, a nice compact size, great road manners, a nice looking car if you ask me. The only complaint I have about that car is it's noisy. It has quite a bit of road and engine noise. If you're doing a lot of highway driving, it can be fatiguing. If you're just driving in the city, that's fine. You can turn up the radio a little bit. So apologize. TSX, wonderful car. And the last gen of TL is a great car as well. Hi Zach, is Subaru Outback last generation a good daily driver? I primarily use the car to pick up and drop kids at school. I was thinking about the 2-liter turbo engine. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a fine car. I have no issue with it at all. The review is on the site. You can go and check it out on the channel. So please have a look. The 2-liter would be the one that I would get. Sorry, I think you're talking about the 2.4-liter turbo. That's the one that I would get. For sure. It makes it much more dynamic to drive. Absolutely. The 2.5 does the job, but it isn't the most exciting. Paul says, hi Zach, do you think the Land Moto car umbrella to cover the car to protect from sun and rain? I don't know enough about that. I apologize. Peter says, do you think what do you think would make the Tesla truck successful among truck buyers? I see Ford's coming out with Rivian has an electric pickup truck coming. Tesla's going to have one. Ford is developing one with Rivian, and it's going to be an F-150. What's the number one thing that they're trying to get out of pickup trucks? Weight. And what's the number one thing you add when you put a big battery in a truck? Weight. And that's going to compromise towing capacity and also payload capacity because, there's only so much that the frame can take. So in order to make it do what a regular pickup truck can do now, you'd have to reinforce it, which makes it heavier. So I just don't understand it. I think there's certainly a case for maybe a hybrid truck, but I don't understand an electric pickup truck. I think that is not what they should be focusing on. You know what Tesla should focus on, in my opinion? They should focus on an SUV like the Model X, but doesn't look like a suppository. Something that looks like a proper SUV with normal doors that, that looks good and has lots of function and is bigger. That's what I would focus on. I don't understand. And then what's the cost of the thing going to be? So the battery packs are the most expensive part. The only good thing is you get great capacity out of the electric motors. Like you get a monster torque for a truck is great, and monster towing capacity, all of those sorts of things. But then weight is your enemy and cost. So I don't really see how you could make it affordable with the weight of the vehicle. That's my thought on it. Hey Zach, is it just me or is the Nissan 370Z for $30,000 incredible value? Do you like the Z or the Z? I'm thinking of replacing my Golf with one for something a little more exciting. Now, it is a lot of car for the money, but this is an old car and the inside is really plastic fantastic. And the engine is, I've never liked that engine. Okay, it's a raspy, it's not very smooth. It doesn't have the high-end horsepower is really quite thrashy. The suspension, especially if you get the Nismo models, is really bumpy. It's an older car, and when you drive it now, it feels like an older car. There's a lot of car there for the money, though. That I will give you, and they've been making it for a long time, so you would think that they've got things sorted out with it. It's very low and awkward to get in and out of, but so is the Supra. But you know what? There is a strong argument to be made for the 370 because it is so inexpensive. Yeah, even the Miata, the MX-5 Miata is more money and doesn't have the same kind of horsepower. I had one recently, last year I believe it was. It was fine, but all of those points are still valid. It's not very refined on the inside. The engine isn't very refined, but it's a good deal. So I jumped around again. I apologize. Here we go. Do you think the all-wheel drive Camry and Nissan Altima will equal the deal of the Subaru Legacy. Okay, yeah, this is big news. I put it on the Facebook, so if you want to go along, I put some news on there on my Facebook page, which is Motormouth. Dial that up and like the page. Yeah, Camry, Toyota announced that Camry and Avalon will both be available with the all-wheel drive system. It's the same all-wheel drive system that they use in the RAV4, which is a slip and grip system. So it's running on front-wheel drive as much as it can, and then sends power to the rear when it needs it. I think it's fine for what most people use. Like, people get all hung up about the symmetrical all-wheel drive system in the Subaru, and it is superior. But for most people, do they care or even know? The number one thing I say always, most people buy all-wheel drive because of weather conditions, winter conditions. Invest in a good set of winter tires. Like, a good set of winter tires will do a great job for you, even with just a front-wheel drive vehicle. But I think it's great that they're adding more into these cars. Somebody asked me last week why I thought it is that they're adding like all-wheel drive into the the Mazda 3, the Altima, now the Camry. Well, the sales of these classes of vehicles are falling. So they're throwing more at them to get people to still consider driving a sedan. And I think there is now an opening for a Toyota Venza replacement. And I remember having a beer with the chief engineer of Camry. They had the launch in Prince Edward Island. We went out for dinner on the beach. It was awesome, right, in PEI in the summertime. And then at the end, we had a nightcap, and I was sitting next to the chief engineer. And I said, okay, you've got the new Camry. Why can't you develop, like you did before, a Venza-style car, but do exactly what Subaru does, which is raise it up, put the cladding on it, make it look like a slight crossover vehicle, and I think that would sell. So I think now that they do have a Camry all-wheel drive, opens the door for the possibility that they might have a station wagon again, or a station wagon sort of derivative like an Outback in the future. But yeah, I think it's definitely competition for the Legacy, but I don't think it's the same level of all-wheel drive. Convinced my 18 BMW 340 is the perfect all-weather one-vehicle car. 6-speed manual, well done. Inline 6, all-wheel drive. Last of the 6-speed all-wheel drive BMWs. No electric BS. What a shame. Emissions are killing fun. That is a wonderful car. I totally agree with you. That is pretty much a perfect everyday vehicle. If you drive manual and you're fine with that, yeah, wonderful. Last of the 6-speed all-wheel drive, inline 6-cylinder BMWs. Yeah, you don't have to sell me. Just make it a wagon, and that's even cooler. David, and yes, I know electric cars are fun in their way, but not the same as sound-wise and feel-wise. Fast launches only get you so far. I kind of agree with that. Think about driving electric vehicles and that really quick acceleration. It's kind of like a one-trick thing. And how often, really, do you use wide open throttle and flat-out acceleration in a car? Not very often. Now, electric cars can also have great handling and low center of gravity thanks to those big, heavy batteries. But yeah, maybe it's a generational thing. My generation will miss the sound and the roar of a beautiful V8 like a Mustang GT. Others could care less. They maybe like the digital aspect. We'll have to wait and see. Dave says, what do you think about the upcoming Genesis GV80? So Genesis, as you know, has the G80, G90, and the G70, all sedans. In my reviews of those vehicles, I say like they need an SUV like yesterday, and they know that. So the GV80 is going to be a 3-row mid-size utility. Think Toyota Highlander size, Honda Pilot size. And if you look at what Genesis has been able to bring to the table when it comes to refinement, interior materials, road manners, quietness, smooth delivery of power from either their 3.3 liter turbo 6-cylinder or that beautiful 5 liter V8. And they probably will have, you know, two variants of that, the turbo and the V8. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. And if you look at the quality scores that they're getting at Genesis and right now, and the people who have them seem to be very satisfied with the product, I think it's only a matter of time before they become a real serious contender. Now, styling looks a lot like the G90 with the big oversized grille. Haven't seen it officially yet, but that's going to be one to watch. And also, look at the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade, what they were able to do with those non-premium utilities. This is going to be very exciting. Steven says, are you a believer in the engine start-stop function? Could it hurt the engine in the long run? I don't think it's going to hurt the engine in the long run. You know, I'm fine with it. It actually works. I mean, the most annoying thing is when you're in bumper-to-bumper stop-and-go traffic on the highway, say you're just crawling along and the engine switches on and off. A lot of them you can turn it off and just keep the engine running, which is much more relaxing. But yeah, if you can't, and some of these initial systems are really punitive, on and off, turning the engine on and off, that's a pain in the ass. But if you're concerned about it, and you buy a car and it has it, make sure it has the delete switch where you can turn it off if you don't like it. And that's one area where hybrid really, really works. Because, for example, with just having a small battery on board, it can do that low speed, off and on the throttle, bumper to bumper. The gasoline engine doesn't even come on at all. It's just the battery. You need to crawl up just a couple feet and then stop. A hybrid is really good at that stuff. Hi Zach, do you prefer the last generation Honda V6 to this generation's 2-liter turbo? I'm not really fussed one way or the other. I think that the 2-liter turbo is pretty cool technology. The V6 was a great car, and if you're one of those people that wants to buy a car and keep it for a long, long time, the V6 is a compelling story. I mean, I don't know how many times I recommended the last RDX, the Acura RDX with the 6-cylinder, the V6, and the 6-speed automatic transmission. Bulletproof technology, been around for a long time. You could buy it and drive it for 15, 20 years. If you maintain it properly, it would just keep on going. Actually, my brother-in-law's mother-in-law, can you figure it out, that one? My brother-in-law's mother-in-law was looking for a replacement for her V6 Accord, and she wanted a utility, and I said, get the last V6 RDX, and she's perfectly happy with it. Yeah, so it's up to you. I think the 2-liter turbo's fine too. Bradley White, hi Zach, looking for a 20 Outback Premier XT. It's about 52 grand. Wow, that's expensive. I've looked at the RDX. Jeep Rubicon. Does anything else come to mind at this point? One vehicle, country roads for my cottage. Yeah, well, you could look at the Volkswagen Alltrack. That's an interesting vehicle if you're wanting a sort of an SUV style vehicle like that. And if you also like that sort of station wagon look, at 52 grand, probably the Allroad is probably a little bit more than that for the Audi, but that's another great vehicle. But the world is your oyster. You're looking at so many vehicles in that small SUV space that would be fine for taking on a cottage road. Like most compact utilities would be just fine. Levante says, the J-Series V6 is great, but in the long term, I guess someone's talking about the engines there, answering my questions. Ashish says, hi sir, would you choose, based on reliability, the Cadillac XT4, Audi Q3, Volvo XC40, and the Lincoln Corsair? I keep my cars 10 plus years. Well, these are all pretty new, to be honest with you, so nobody has a perfect crystal ball. The Q3 is just arriving in dealerships in the last few months. The XC40's only been out for about a year and a half or so. Cadillac XT4's only been out for a year. And the Lincoln is just arriving at dealerships now. So to say which one is going to be the most reliable after 10 years, no one has a crystal ball. Cadillac has improved their quality. Audi Q3 is an excellent product. If I was going to buy one of these based just generally on what I like and the way it drives and the way it looks, I would choose the Audi. I think this new Audi Q3 is fantastic. It's got the Volkswagen GTI engine in it, 228 horsepower. it's really hard to know what the quality is going to be like 10 years out. John says, your thoughts on a turbo 4-cylinder versus naturally aspirated V6 in terms of reliability? Well, of course, I think over long term, if you're going 10 plus years, as I mentioned with the RDX and the old V6, if you're going to keep it long term and maintain it, yeah, there's less load on a bigger displacement engine. But the turbos now have been around for quite a while, okay? So you might want to look at brands that have been doing it longer. It really comes down to your comfort. If you're kind of answering your own question here. You're asking me whether you should get an Accord V6 or you should get the 2-liter. If you're really concerned about this and you keep your vehicles long term, get the V6. No problem. Maintain it. It'll run. It'll do everything you want. And then you know you've made the right choice, okay? Q5 3-liter T Signature leasing at $450 a month Canadian is a good deal. I don't know. Okay, here we go. Perfect lead-in for the sponsor of the channel, Car Cost Canada. Now, I mentioned that most car purchases are decided around the kitchen table based on monthly figures. Okay, here's a perfect example. You've got between $400 and $500 a month to spend on a vehicle. You want to buy it or you want to lease it. Most people are leasing, especially premium vehicles. And you have a couple of vehicles in mind. Say it's the Q50 and say it's the Q3 from Audi. And you go to Car Cost Canada, look at that, perfect timing, and Car Cost Canada, and you do a search for those, you're going to find that what the dealer paid for it, dealer cost, any kind of rebates that are not made public, any discounted interest rates, any incentives that you might not be aware of. And sometimes there's secret money on the table. For example, the Q50 from Infiniti, if you're going to keep it for a long period of time, you might want to, the Q50 hasn't been selling as well as they had thought. I'm thinking QX50, the Q50. So there might be more money on the table for that vehicle because it's not selling as well as they had hoped. So that's something to consider. And when it comes down to two vehicles, often it's the deal that decides which vehicle you're going to choose. So I shouldn't have mentioned I thought it was QX50. So you're talking the 4-door sedan with the 3-liter. $450 a month. So go online, have a look at Car Cost Canada and see what kind of deals are out there, and then go onto the calculator and figure it out. But say if it was between a Q50 and an Audi A4, then you could see which one is going to be the better deal. What do you think of the trend of converting older internal combustion engine vehicles into electric? Is that a trend that will pick up in your opinion? Now, this is all niche stuff. Like, there's not that many people out there. There are some people taking older cars and doing a resto mod and turning it into electric vehicle, but it's not mainstream, okay? Like, don't kid yourself. Electric cars are not mainstream yet, and modifying old cars to make them electric certainly isn't. We've got a long way to go. I always say this is 100 step ladder we're going up. We're kind of on the first rung for electric cars. There is going to be a lot of car companies that bring electric cars out to market that are not going to sell. They're not. They're just going to sit there. And my biggest worry for the industry is that Field of Dreams movie, build it and they will come. Well, what if all of these car companies build it and they don't come? And say we just have a couple of winners. Maybe it's just Tesla with a couple of the German brands sprinkled in, and Nissan or General Motors or something. Like, there's going to be a lot. Here's a perfect example. Think of hybrid vehicles, okay? There's really only one winner in the hybrid game. That's Toyota. And so many other car companies make hybrids, but people don't buy them. And I think that's the worry we're going to get with electric cars. There's going to be one or two brands that are successful, and the rest are going to sit, in my opinion. We'll have to wait and see. In every business, there's winners and losers. Yeah, somebody's just saying they just got a notification from Ford about the Mach-E debut in 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up at 6. Which is 6 Pacific or 9 o'clock Eastern. At that time, Ford is going to do their live stream. So if you want to switch from this to that, feel free. Hey, Zach, loving the announcement from Toyota about the Camry coming with all-wheel drive. Camry all-wheel drive hybrid seems like a great buy. That'll probably come eventually because, if you think about what they have, with the RAV4 hybrid using the electric motor at the back to add all-wheel drive, and they've built on the same platform. That's the great thing about going to these platforms that can scale all different cars off them. All of those tools they have in the tools kit they can use. So yeah, I agree with you. That's something that could come. I know you don't give financial advice, but would like your thoughts. Financial gurus say don't spend more than 20% of your annual income on a car. Being a car guy, do you agree? What is your percent? I don't know. I mean, I spend money on all kinds of things that I probably shouldn't. You know, fancy watches. I always have a nice car. I've always had nice cars. So for me, as a car guy, I've always put a premium value on having a nice car. You know, my first premium car I bought was, I was 20, how old was I? And in my late 20s, I bought a BMW M6, the very first M6, 1988. And that was a painful purchase because older BMW M cars are expensive to maintain, and I was always throwing money at it. But I own 5 BMWs, I've owned 4 Porsches, I've owned Audis, I've always had nice cars. So for me, I always put more of a value on having a nice car. Other people like to go on vacation. Like my brother's a perfect example. My brother he runs his cars into the ground, but he likes to go on he's a school teacher, so he has the summer off from school. He likes to go on long trips to Europe, so he spends his money on that. I would rather have a nice car, so it's up to you. So that's my advice. Buy what you can afford and enjoy it. And don't go to Mexico this year or something, right? You use the car every day. That's the way I look at it. Use the car every day. You go for 2 weeks to Mexico or a week to Mexico. You come back and you're like, well, that was nice. And, you know, 2 weeks later, your tan is gone, but at least you've got the car in the driveway. Hey, Zach, we have a 15 Santa Fe SE. My wife and I are thinking of replacing it with either a new 2020 Santa Fe, but lately we've been thinking about the Audi Q3 or the VW Tiguan. Your thoughts? I think that they're both fine choices. I would buy the Q3. I think I explained it last week, if you didn't listen in last week. So the Tiguan, they made much bigger when they brought it in about 2 or 3 years ago. That's the European long wheelbase version. So that offered them the option to offer the third row of seats. And the great thing in Canadian market, it's only $750 to put the third row in there. Now, the complaint about the Tiguan is a lot of people think it's 186 horsepower, it's underpowered. Now, it's not the most exciting vehicle to drive when it comes to power, but it does the job. It's fine. Okay? So a lot of people lamented, why don't we get the shorter wheelbase one they sell in Europe, and why don't we get a more powerful engine? Do you know what that is? The Q3. Based on the same platform, based on the short wheelbase Tiguan that's sold in Europe, and based with the Volkswagen Golf GTI engine in there. So 228 horsepower, shorter wheelbase, more dynamic to drive, much better interior quality materials. And if it was between those two, and you don't need that extra legroom in the back of the Tiguan, the Q3 is hands down my choice. But if you need that extra space, there you go. Now, I'm trying to remember, in the GTI, you don't need to put in premium gas. That's one thing you might want to check, because you probably can run it on regular gas. I'm interested in buying a used Audi A8L, and I found the perfect one, 2016. Already depreciated, around $90,000 of original price. Do you know of any issues with the car? Only driven about 20,000 miles or kilometers. Okay, here's the thing I have to say to you. It's depreciated. It's a 2016. It's 3 years old and it's already depreciated $90,000. That seems excessive to me. It doesn't stop once you buy it. That's the news flash. Ask me how I know. I owned a BMW 740 IS, which was the one they used in the James Bond movie from the late 90s. Late 90s. I had a 2001 silver BMW 740 with the sport package with the M parallel wheels. It was a great car. I loved it. And I thought, oh, you're so smart. The car's 2 years old and it's depreciated by 50%. But what I didn't realize until I owned it for a while is that depreciation curve just keeps on going. So if you're fine with that, that's a lot of car for the money. A8L is a wonderful car. The last few years of Audi cars have become much, much more reliable. So I don't really have an issue with recommending it. But just remember, The depreciation doesn't stop when you buy it. It keeps on going. William says, in the Golf, is the 1.4 turbo that big of a step down from the 1.8 or the normally aspirated 2.5 in the Mark 6? I did a video of the new 1.4. It's on the channel. Go and watch it. I did it about a month ago. I thought it was great. I think that the 1.4 that's in the Jetta and now the Golf is fantastic. And I actually related the story. I had a chance to drive the Mark 7 Golf a year before it was sold in North America. I went to the south of France and then the Nice, Monte Carlo area. We were actually there for the Beetle convertible launch, but they had some of the new Mark 7 Golfs there, and the one that I drove when the car was very first introduced into the European market was that 1.4 engine. And I remember saying to Thomas from Volkswagen Canada, who was our host, I said, this is a great engine. Why don't you offer this engine in North America? Well, here we are all those years later, and what did they do? They dropped in that engine into the North American market. I don't have an issue with it at all. Go and drive it for yourself and see what you think, but I think it's just fine. Hey there, GTI or Veloster N? Well, these are very different. Veloster is a compromise when it comes to the design. It's not as functional. The interior materials in the Veloster aren't anywhere close to the GTI, still covered in hard plastic on the inside. The GTI is a much softer riding car. The Veloster N has a lot more horsepower. It also has the dynamic chassis control. You push the N button and it really makes things firm and it really livens up the engine. So what I suggest you do is go and drive them for yourself. One is a compromise in terms of design. The other one is, just a good all-rounder. So it comes down to what you need it for. If you only drive it yourself, a Veloster N is a lot of car for the money. It certainly is a lot of car for the money. So there you go. That's my thoughts on it. I wish they had brought the i30N that they sell in Europe, and that is the one that would be a real GTI and Golf R competitor. Thanks, Zach, for the feedback on the TSX. Thanks for providing great car content. Even better that you have a Canadian slant. Well, I appreciate that. You know, the channel used to be called Motormouth Canada, and I have a disproportionately large Canadian audience because of that. And also I'm on a TV show that goes across the country, so I'm kind of known a bit in the Canadian market. But yeah, I took the Canada off, Motormouth Canada, because it was kind of prejudicial. I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't watch because it was Canadian, but I think the people that live here certainly appreciate the fact that there's someone Canadian. Do you think the original Porsche 911 was relevant to the first VW Beetle? Thanks for your advice. First car I'm leaning on is the Civic. Absolutely. There's no question that the Porsche 911 or the 356 were directly derived from the Volkswagen Beetle. And here's the main thing. Both of them are rear engine, okay? And neither one of them had a front grille. And Walter, what was Walter? I have his book up there. Walter de Souza that's what I'm trying to think of. Walter de Silva, not de Souza. Walter de Silva was the head of design for Volkswagen and Audi. And I interviewed him at the Frankfurt or the Geneva Motor Show. This was about 6 or 8 years ago. And I asked him when they were showing the latest Volkswagen Beetle, the one that's out now. And he answered the question and he said, the Beetle was very hard to design, this last generation one, because it's the only car in the Volkswagen family that is connected to the Porsche. And he said the hardest thing was the front of the car, because the most prominent thing about those two cars is the headlights and the fact that there's no grille. You don't realize it that much until it's pointed out to you. The grille of a car is one of the major statement pieces of a vehicle. So when you try to design a car without a grille, it's really quite tricky. So yes, there's the answer. So Walter de Silva, cool guy. I have his book up there. Is it worth getting a new Acura MDX A-Spec or the Elite? Is it worth the price difference? Thanks. I prefer the MDX A-Spec just because of the way it looks. I like the black on the windows, the black exhaust tip. I just think it looks better. And there's going to be a new MDX coming probably within the next 12 months. But yeah, if I was picking it, it would be a no-brainer. That's the one I would pick. I'm interested in the new Supra, but I've been avoiding German cars due to their high maintenance costs. Can we expect typical Toyota maintenance costs on the Supra? Or will an oil change be like $500? Well, here's the thing is, it is a BMW. It's a BMW Z4. It's got a BMW Z4 engine. It's got a ZF transmission that BMW doesn't make, but it's a German transmission supplier. It's really, you're buying a BMW with a Toyota badge on it. So if you're adverse to the servicing of the car, I don't know if Toyota's going to do it at a different price than BMW charges, but it is a concern. And there you go. Maybe check with Toyota and see what they're going to charge. But yeah, it's synthetic oil and all those sorts of things, and they add up for sure. I just came to watch to see what watch you're wearing. Okay, Scott, I'm wearing, which is quickly becoming one of my favorites, a mid-90s Tudor Submariner. It's got a matte dial and painted on indices. This is all watch talk for you. I don't care, just tune out for a second. And it's got a matte dial with painted on luminous markers, and it looks a lot like a Rolex 5513, which is a watch I probably should buy one day. But there you go. That's why I like it so much. Zach, did you get to drive the new Wrangler EcoDiesel yet? Evan from New York City. No, I haven't. If I was buying a Jeep, I would buy the 3-liter diesel. I would. I'm a huge diesel fan. I was driving our Cayenne diesel today, and the torque is so good. The fuel economy is amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure the price because I was on the website looking and I didn't see it listed for sale yet, but they just had that engine reintroduced. For me, I'm a diesel guy. If you're a diesel guy, you're kind of answering your own question. If you're on the fence, the 3.6 liter is fine. It does a great job. I haven't driven it yet. But I have driven the old EcoDiesel in the past in the Ram pickup truck, and it was great. 2020 Ford Explorer ST review anytime soon. I did do a quick video on it. I had a chance to drive it when I was in Salt Lake City. So there is a video on it. It isn't a full review, but there is a quick video on it. I will get my hands back on it again. Hi from Westchester, New York. Newer used M240 manual with track pack or certified 17 M2 manual. The smart money's on the 240, to be honest with you. There's only, I think it's only 20 or 30 horsepower difference. The only issue I have with the 240 is that I don't think that the wheels fit the wheel wells properly. It kind of looks a little like the body's too big for the wheels. And obviously that with the M2, it's totally the other way around. They almost look too big for the body and they've got these big fender flares on it. Cool as hell though. But the smart money, if you're just, if you're doing a logical purchase, the 240 is the way to go. And the 240, in my opinion, is the best car in the BMW range if you're factoring in things like drivability, size, manual transmission, and cost to buy one. That is kind of the sweet spot. Now, if you can afford an M2, it might not be a bad way to go, but it's a lot more money for not much more in terms of horsepower. Now, a lot changes with the suspension, of course, but I still think the 240 is the one to get. How long do you keep your vehicles? Well, our last Audi we had for 4 years. We had an Audi an Audi A7 for 4 years. These are the personal cars. Our Porsche Cayenne before that we had for 6 years. My 911s I had for, I think they were 4.5 years each. I had two 993s. I had them for almost 5 years each. What did we have before that? We had a X5, which we had for 3 years. Yeah, we keep our cars anywhere from 3 to 6, 7 years at the top end. So this Cayenne we're going to keep though, because it's the last year that they sold the diesel and you can't get it again. And because it's the diesel and it was never put on the road, it sat for a year and a half on a lot. I got one, and it comes with a 10-year warranty on most of the major components for the car. So I will keep it for 10 years because it's got this killer warranty. And as you know, I love to have German cars under warranty. I apologize if I didn't get to your question. Just so you know, I do read them all, and I do appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I will be here next weekend. I'll be right here until the 1st of December, okay? So yeah, I appreciate you coming. Thanks for all the questions, and please watch the videos on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm thinking you probably are subscribed if you're watching, but tell your friends. Be nice to grow the channel some more. I appreciate everybody that comes on here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll speak to you next week right here on the channel. Take it easy.